Way back in 2005, Verity started her journey as the first South African musician crazy enough to get 2,000 people to buy an album she hadn't even recorded yet. 15 years later, in 2021, Verity became the first speaker from Africa, the sixth woman in history to ever be crowned the world champion of public speaking. And then again, in 2023, she became the first speaker from Africa and first female world champion to ever be awarded the accredited speaker designation. Helping people to write a different story and be the author of their lives is Verity's passion. And today, she's going to share what she has been through, what she has seen to be the 4 steps to writing and delivering a winning speech. Verity, the floor is yours. A big round of applause, everybody, please.
Thank you so much, Sue, and what a welcome. Wow, I am in awe. I'm just putting my timer on so that I stick to time. And what a pleasure and a privilege to be with all of you today. I can't wait to share this time together. If I get an invitation to, and I don't normally say yes to clubs, so I just want to put that out there. But when you say you are the Contest Mastery Club and you're in the champion building community, I had to say yes. So it's absolutely fabulous, fabulous to be with you all and to go on this journey of the next 90 minutes or so. Are you ready? Let me check. See the energy in the room. I see some thumbs up. We are ready. Fabulous. Wonderful. So today is all about the 4 steps to writing a winning speech. But before I start, I want to find out from you. You're a Contest Mastery Club. And if you can just put this in the chat, when it comes to winning a speech contest, if you could drill it down to one thing, what's the one thing a speaker needs in order to win a speech contest? And let's just pop that in the chat and get a sense of, if we had to bring it down to one thing. Okay, message, 100%, speaking from the heart, confidence, authenticity, grounding phrases, message, engagement, delivering yourself, heart, connection, a hot topic, confidence, change, to be authentic, a story. Oh my word, we're getting all of it here. These are definitely all the things we need. Caring for the audience, purpose, structure, body language. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a lot of things we need, but what we're missing in the chat is the one thing you need. And I love that universal message delivery, but it's still not there, because the one thing you need to win a speech contest is you need to enter. Okay, I see some aha moments there. You can have the best speech in the world, but if you don't enter, you cannot win a speech contest. And the reason I'm saying this is I am one of the people who's entered and not entered speech contests many times. I entered for the first time in 2012. I was a new member of Toastmasters. I just thought I had a club in a little town called Fishhook at the bottom of Cape Town, at the bottom of Africa. I didn't even know Toastmasters was international. So when they said we're having a speaking contest, I said, oh, I'll do that. And I did what I think a lot of Toastmasters do. I left it till the day before. And then I threw a story together and I practiced it once. And when I arrived at that speech contest, I was feeling a little bit cocky, to be honest. I was a professional speaker already, so I thought, I've got this, I can do this. And so I decided to enter. I'm just trying to get my screen right. There we go. I decided to enter and didn't do much. My sister, Kay, on the other hand, really prepared for that contest. We were both members of our club. And that night, she beat me. And I discovered my first lesson about contests is you can't over prepare for a contest. You have to enter it with a winning spirit. And I watched Kay go from beating me at club to winning area, then division, She became the third woman in 56 years to win our district, Southern Africa. And in 2012, she went all the way to Orlando, Florida, to the World Semifinals. And there she came second in her semifinal to a young man named Ryan Avery, who 2 days later became world champion. So we always wonder if she'd been in another semifinals, could she have pipped him in the finals? But that's the way contests go. The amazing thing about this is that Kay got to the world semifinals with the 6th speech she'd ever given in her life. She was a nervous speaker. She was having to deal with an anxiety coach to get her through the stress of competing. She is a great storyteller. But having seen her win and how far she got, when contest season came around, I just said, no, that looks too hard. And what if I lose at club again? So I didn't enter for 3 years. Eventually, I entered again 2015 going, I've got a message. And that came through a lot in the chat. I was like, I've got a message. I've got a story I want to tell. So I entered and I managed to get to 3rd place in division that year. That was a problem for my ego. At that moment, I just said, you know what? I'm not entering these contests. They don't get me at Toastmasters. I get paid to speak. This is embarrassing. Why am I losing a Toastmasters contest? And I didn't enter for 6 years. In fact, I left Toastmasters to become a mother. And if it hadn't been for lockdown, I would never have rejoined Toastmasters, or I still have a 4-year-old. I still would not be at Toastmasters. But because of lockdown, I rejoined a club that was struggling to keep its doors open, and I joined as their president to help revive them. And it was through watching the 2020 World Championships and being inspired by Mike Carr's winning message. And messages come through so many times in the chat. But his message of the victory is not in the result, the victory is in the try. That gave me the wake-up call I needed. And I entered in 2021, and it was the hardest, longest, most intense 7 months of my life. I gave that contest everything. I entered it with my sister's attitude. I watched every winning speech I could watch. I read everything I could read about speech writing. I paid for Lance Miller, the 2005 world champion, to be my coach. And I entered it with the intention to win. Now, 35,000 people enter this contest every year. That is a crazy intention to have, but I had this bizarre, I call it a positive premonition. I had a positive premonition that I was going to win this contest. I don't know where that came from. I had an 18-month-old baby. We were stuck in our houses, but something in me said yes to that idea, and I gave it everything. And we all know I'm here because it worked. I won the international speech contest. But what I realized after winning, and now that I do all these masterclasses and talks around the world, and I coach hopeful contestants, this is a tough contest. 35,000 people are entering again this year, and only one person is guaranteed to win. So why do we enter? And then it hit me. In a speech contest, only one person is guaranteed to finally win, but everyone else who enters is guaranteed to grow. And I really want to start that as our main point of today, is that yes, everyone is guaranteed, one person is guaranteed to win, but everyone else is guaranteed to grow. And so when you choose the growth that a speech contest will bring you as a speaker, that's when you get the most out of a speech contest. So are you ready to choose the growth with me? That is my question. You can put yes in the chat. You can give me thumbs up. Okay, fabulous. So we are ready to choose the growth. So quick question. We're coming up to Christmas time, and I know the halls are being decked and the trees are out. Do you enjoy receiving gifts? And just give me a yes in the chat. Do you like getting gifts? Do you like receiving gifts? I see people are still choosing growth. But when it comes to gift, oh, that's a yes from Ricky. I love it. Some of us prefer giving, which is good, because you'll see why. Fantastic. We like to give them. Some of us like to receive. It's kind of a two-way street. But also something that has occurred to me since winning the world championships, and the more I teach about speaking and the more immersed I get in the art of speechcraft, is that fundamentally a speech is a gift that you give to your audience. And it's great that a lot of us say we prefer giving, but I really want you to think about this. A speech is a gift that you give to your audience. We call it presenting. It has the word present in it. To present means to give. And so it's crucial when we give a speech that the audience receives something they want to take home. And again, that's going to come down to that crucial word message that came through in the chat so much. So it is a gift that we give to our audience. And when we approach contest speeches with the intention to actually give someone to the audience, not to get a trophy. You can go buy a trophy. And this Darren LaCroix also says this. You could go buy a trophy at the $5 store. You can't buy the growth that the contest gives you, but you also can't buy the satisfaction that knowing you've given something that is meaningful to others means. Now, of course, there are choices in how we wrap a gift. You could wrap one like this and go, here you go, I got you a gift. Merry Christmas, happy birthday. I'm not sure if anyone is dreadfully keen on receiving this gift from me, or you could wrap it like this. So quick poll, and we'll just do this in the chat. If you had to choose right now, would you want the plastic bag or the box? If I was giving you a gift right now, which one would you choose? Quick poll, let's put it in the chat. Which would you choose? The box, the box, the box, the box, the box. The box is always a clear winner. Why? Some of us want the plastic, so I'm impressed, but most of us want the box. Why the box? What is it about the box that gets your attention more than this? And just pop it in the chat. It looks pretty. It's packaged beautifully. It's aesthetically pleasing. It took time. So again, we see the effort, looks better prepared. It's more intriguing. Your effort to wrap it. Love it. It's heavier looking. I like that. We're saying, what's the perceived value? Care, preparation. So shiny object. I love that. So this is the important thing about speaking. Audience has to decide to unwrap what you're giving them from the moment you step on stage or onto screen. It looks more environmentally friendly too, and I love that. Thank you for noticing that. So from the way we're dressed, that it matches what we're speaking about, to the way we use on our lighting if we're online, people make a decision very quickly if they're going to listen, if they're going to lean in. But someone said in there, it's the surprise, the anticipation. So what I want to look at first today is the 3 things we want to create in an audience when we're speaking. And how I'm going to teach the class today is I have put together short little video clips that there's about 5 world champions. I haven't had time to put everyone together, but I want to illustrate what I teach by showing you winning world championship speeches and how they use the tips and techniques that I'm going to touch on. So there are 3 things that we want to create in an audience when we're speaking. And number 1 is the feeling a lot of you had when you saw the box, and that is a sense of curiosity. When an audience is curious, they are leaning in, they're listening, they're hanging on every word. And in a contest speech, you want to create curiosity as early as your title. Now, this is really important. I sometimes see people, their title is giving away the whole point of their speech. And that would be like me just taking all this wrapping off and showing you what the present is. It takes away the anticipation, the curiosity, the journey that you want to take an audience on. So you want to find a title that's intriguing. And you can look at, any world championship speech, you'll see the titles create curiosity. We've had an unbelievable story, changed by attire, the ultimate question, ouch, mine was a great read. And there's Indini, last year's winner. We don't know what that means, but we're curious to find out. So look at your title and go, is this creating curiosity? Because that's going to get the judges listening up front. Next, you want to try and create curiosity as early as possible at the start of your speech. It draws the audience in and it gets them invested. So I'm going to show you some examples in a little while of how world champions do that. But then also throughout your speech, you want to keep creating curiosity. And we do that through a pause where we say something and we pause before we carry on just to draw them back in. Or you will never believe what I saw standing over there, and a pause. It's going to create that sense of curiosity. So a curious audience is what we're looking for. The second thing we're looking for is a connected audience. So it's crucial, and I saw it coming through in the chat earlier. We want to create universal connection, a universal message. Connection in a speech is that you need the audience to see themselves in your story, to see themselves in your scenarios. Because if they see themselves in the scenario or the story that you're telling, they are connected with you. They are on the journey with you. So connection for me is about simplifying the stories we tell. Obviously, it's a gift for our audience. So thinking, will everyone across cultures, across ages, across races, nations, will they identify with what I'm talking about? And there are universal connection points in life. If you're talking about failure, there's not a person on this planet who hasn't failed. If you're talking about falling in love or falling out of love, not a person on this planet who hasn't gone through that. If you're talking about something that happened at school, instant connection, something that happened in traffic, instant connection, something to do with parents or caregivers. So connection can be really, really simple, doesn't have to be complicated. It can take a lot of intention, though, in your speech writing. If you have seen my winning speech for the World Championships, I'm not going to assume that everyone has, but if you have, the speech essentially is about a miserable 40-year-old whose life is going nowhere. She's not married. She doesn't have children. And, you know, she wishes she'd had a fairy tale. That's what the speech was about. In the early versions of the speech, I very quickly realized that I was strongly connecting to women in the audience, but I was losing a lot of the men in the audience. And so I had to go back to the way I'd written my speech and go, how do I connect to everyone? And what I decided to do, and this was with my sister Kay, also helping me as my mentor for the journey, we realized I wasn't telling enough about my father because a lot of the speech was about him. And when I started to share how he had lost his job, how he'd had to start over, how he'd had to turn his life around, I now had 2 points in my story that were connecting to hopefully as many people as possible. So connection takes effort. You have to really think about, how will the audience see themselves in this scenario, and how can I include them in the story I'm telling so that they feel they are there with me and they understand what I'm talking about. So that is crucial. And if you keep curiosity throughout a speech, little pieces of it to keep the energy, and you talk about a scenario or a story that is universally connecting, that should ensure that you get the third thing that you're trying to create in your audience. And that is commitment. Commitment for them to receive your speech and go, oh, I love this. I'm taking it home. That's what we're looking for. The message that you are trying to get into their hearts, you get to that by making them curious, making them connected. And then it's an easy sell in your conclusion to get the commitment you're looking for. All right. So would you like to see how world champions create connection and curiosity? Let me just see with some thumbs up. I see George going, yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's have a look at these videos. I apologize if you have other world champions that are favorites of yours. I've chosen ones of videos I could download. There are loads more world champions I could include in this, but these are some of the champions that I studied while I was on my journey to winning this contest. So that's why they're here. That's the only reason. And I've run out of time to do more editing. So that's the disclaimer. Let's have a look at how world champions create curiosity and just see the devices they use. And for all of these, this is right near the beginning of their speeches.
The ultimate question. That question that has plagued man since the dawn of time. And that question that each and every one of us must ask at some point in our life. Do you validate?
The steering wheel jerked. I tried to keep the car in control. That night in Chicago, a flat tire changed me.
What?
You and I are not very different from this flower. Just like this flower is unique, you are unique.
I was spellbound as I watched the sheriff who had just been shot slide back, open that heavy metal door, stagger forward a couple of steps, look deep into the camera and say, I before E except after C.
I had dragged myself to the shops just to get more ice cream, thinking no one I know is going to be there. But there she was.
All right. So you start to get a sense of how these small little short scenarios are designed to draw the audience in, to grab their attention and make them hungry for more. Let's now have a look at how they create connection, how they find universal touch points that anyone, anywhere could connect to, resonate with, understand, because this is the International Speech Contest, and we have to make sure that we are crossing divides with the stories and the speeches that we share. So let's have a look at how they do that.
I had a job I didn't like. I hadn't had a date in 3 years. And I had a couple of roommates named Mom and Dad. I felt like my life was going nowhere. So I took control. I left my home and my family, and I headed to Los Angeles to start over. 6 months later, I had a job I didn't like. I was dating a girl who was trying to make me better by pointing out all of my faults. And I had a couple of roommates that made Dumb and Dumber look like Einstein and Oppenheimer.
Why do flat tires always happen when you're dressed up? Opened the trunk, excavated the jack, unused for centuries.
I have a son who's 4. And he had this bad habit of writing on the walls with crayons. And one evening I walked into his room and he's going at it, just writing and drawing and so on. And I said, hey. Are you stupid? Don't you ever do that again. And guess what happened? He did it again. Nobody likes to be threatened. Nobody likes to be intimidated. His pride would not allow it. He did it again just to spite me. A week later, I walked into his room, and again, he's going at it. And this time, he was even looking at me just.
Now, I wasn't afraid of the cops, but there was one person I was very afraid of, and that was my mama. Raise your hand if you have an emotional mother. Let me see. Put them all together, you get mama.
But I still had to tell my parents. When I got home, I snuck in, and I thought, if I just hide in my closet, they'll forget I exist. But then I heard from the kitchen, Mike, come in. I walked in, and I said, Mom, Dad, there's something I have to tell you. I love you, and I am scared of sheriffs. I don't know. I ran to my room. I choked. I couldn't think of anything to say. I thought, I'll tell them tomorrow.
When I was a little girl, I used to love snuggling on my dad's lap while he read me fairy tales. Not surprisingly, I grew up wanting the fairy tale.
Okay, so you start to see that it's very simple, and I hope that's coming through as you watch each of these little segments. These are not complex. All these speeches are simple. They're simple moments in time, simple sentences, simple structure, but they're getting right to the heart of moments that anyone can connect to. And that's what we have to look at. We need to look at our speeches and go, am I overcomplicating this? Am I talking about something that only speaks to a small niche audience? Or am I reaching into the hearts of everyone? And I've said this many times in workshops, and I will say it again. I truly believe that it is completely possible to win the World Championships of Public Speaking with a story of how you learned to boil an egg. If you can tell that story well, if you can keep us on the edges of our seats with the person who helped you and the lesson you learned, that could be an award-winning speech. So Mark Brown, the 1995 world champion, says your story doesn't have to be sensational. It has to be sincere. And I find the sincere stories are the ones that create universal connection. So just something to bear in mind as you're looking for topics is often a simple little thing that happened. If it's a universal experience, could be a powerful way to draw your audience in and take them on a journey. Like this year's world champion, Jocelyn Tyson, about being in a triathlon and having to have a difficult swim. We could all feel her dealing with the two voices, the one that says you can and the one that says you can't. All right, so let's keep moving. I'm now we've looked at the three things you want to create. You want to create curiosity, you want to create connection, all in the hope that you're going to get that commitment at the end. And I'm going to show you some techniques through the 4 steps as to how the commitment happens. But to take you through what I really came to realize after I won the speech contest, the 4 steps are really simple. They're really easy to remember because all you're going to have to remember is the word gift. G-I-F-T. And I'm going to take you through the steps and I'm going to show you some more videos just to bring it to life and make it a little bit easier to see. So the first step, and truly the most important step, and most of you know this because it came up in the chat when I asked, what do you need to win a speech contest? So we know the answer. We just don't often get quite where we need to with this. The first step, the crucial step, is to get clear on your message. This is what they're taking home. This is what you are wrapping. Now, this is sometimes an easy step. In my world semi-final step, it was easy because I grew up with my mom saying, Verity, leave the world better than you find it. My message statement was there. I like to call them sticky statements. They need to stick in people's heads. So it's 10 words or less. It's, I know, we've got so many world champions. I'm trying to remember the names. Craig Valentine, 1999 world champion. He says you want a foundational phrase. You want to build everything around that message. So I was lucky with my semi-final speech. My mom had given me the message. I didn't have to think about the writing or the phrasing. It was leave the world better than you find it. My final speech was a bit harder, because my dad had written me a letter that everything in that speech is true, but I had to shift it and change it to make it accessible. What he actually said in his letter to me was, Verity, work on an attitude of gratitude, polish your goals daily, and watch for a miracle, because I'm watching too. It was an incredible letter. The problem with what he'd said was there's 2 messages. There's a message about work on an attitude of gratitude, and there's a message of polish your goals daily. There are 2 directions I could have taken the audience in. So over 3 months that I worked on that speech, I had to go, what was Dad saying if I had to paraphrase it? So I started with get happy. Then I had be grateful. Then I had look for the good. Then I had change the way you look at things, which is a Wayne Dyer quote. Same story, but I kept trying to get clarity on what is the message I am trying to give my audience. And it was 10 days before the finals that I finally got clear on the message, and I didn't get there by myself. I was practicing at a club online in South Africa, and the evaluator said to me, I love your speech. Everything that's there, if you get to the finals, this could win. I'm worried about your message statement. It's a Wayne Dyer quote. You might lose points on originality. Can't you say it in your own words? And then that led to a phone call with my sister going, what was Dad trying to say? What? And she was like, well, what do you think? And I said, well, he was just telling me to change my attitude. I suppose he was telling me to tell a different story. Something in me went, yes. And you want to have a yes feeling about your message. I got on a call that evening with Lance Miller. I saw someone saying that he's their all-time world champ, mine too. I got on a call. I said, I've come up. I think I've got the message now. Tell a different story. And he said, Verity, wouldn't it be more powerful if you said write? Because that's a real action point. And I said, yes, write a different story. I practiced the speech at a club in London the next morning. And the evaluator said, I love it. The speech is so powerful. But what's the extra action we can take? I love you telling us to write a different story, but see if you can find an action. It's like, what does he mean? I got off the call and I thought, oh, pick up your pen. So it was through the feedback and it was through collaboration and it was through coaching and mentoring that I finally, me 90 days to get clear on the message that if I got a chance to speak to the world was the message I wanted to give. So I'm not going to tell you this is an easy step unless you're sitting with a phrase that someone gave you and it's still got some originality. This is where you have to dig deep into yourself, into your life, into your challenges, into what's changed you, into the mentor or guru who gave you that message, and go, what's the most powerful way I can say this? How can I turn this into a sticky statement? Something that you can say anywhere between 10 to 15 times in your speech. And I learned that from Prez Vazilev, his speech Changed by a Tire. And I did one of his courses and I had one coaching call with him. And it was like, receive the message, maybe reject the message, reflect on the message, then act on the message. You can say your message statement many times. And I'm going to show you now how world champions do that. And just listen to how often they repeat their message. You don't save this for your last line. This has got to be coming to the audience throughout from about the middle of your speech. And only at the end of your speech does it become a call to action. All right. So would you like to see how world champs get clear on their messages? Let's have a look. Awesome. Let's have a squid. And pay attention to the simplicity again and the short sentences.
She took her little machine and she went, cha-chink. And then as she handed it back, she looked at me and she said, there's something special about you. I took the ticket and headed for the elevator. But I stopped. I turned around and just said, thank you. I don't know how long it had been since I'd felt validated. Her words stayed with me all the way home. And as I was looking at my life, I started to wonder how long it had been since I'd validated somebody else. I wanted to do that. I wanted to make people feel good. Every person goes through life wanting to be right, wanting to be valuable. Find that. Bring it out in them. I started to discover in my life that I got what I validated.
Then another voice. Reach out. Reach out. I can handle it. I used to believe that to reach out was weakness. I discovered my weakness was refusing to reach out. When you reach out, you attract ideas that lift you up. When you reach out, you attract solutions that lift you up. When you reach out, you attract friendships that lift you up.
Words, when said and articulated in the right way, can change someone's mind. They can alter someone's belief. Words have power. Words are power. Words could be your power. You can change a life, inspire a nation, and make this world a beautiful place.
Montgomery put her arm around me and she said, it's okay that you took the risk to try to fix it. The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. My failure had not killed me. And yours will not kill you. What was it that Mrs. Montgomery said? The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try.
Verity, your life is a book. And if you're not enjoying the read, write a different story. And then watch for a miracle, because I'm watching too. Fish out of miracles, Dad. And how? How do I write a different story about this? To prove my point, I went to Facebook. And you guessed it, there were no stories of miserable 40-year-olds living in spare rooms. But the letter just lay there. It was like it was looking at me, almost whispering, write a different story.
I will freeze on that very interesting shot of my face just to reflect on what we've seen there. I hope what's coming through again is the simplicity of these messages. And what's fascinating, Lance Miller's message is one word: validate. He says it in different ways. Prez Vasilev's was 2 words: reach out. Muhammad Kotani, 3 words: words have power. So you start seeing that it can be that simple. Then you've got Mike Carr, which is the victory is not in the result, the victory is in the try. But a nice sticky statement. Mine was write a different story, 4 words. So this is the work that you have to do, getting clear on the message, finding what it is, what you have to say. And it needs to be a message that fires you up, because that's what's going to bring the authenticity, the sincerity, the energy that the audience will connect to and resonate with. All right, so get clear on your message. That's your first step. The second step, the eye of the gift, is to intentionally craft your story. All winning speeches center around intentionally crafted stories. Often it's one story. Muhammad Kotani, he used 3 little scenarios to get his point across, but often it is one story. The powerful stories are the ones that have happened to you. Don't tell someone else's story. Tell your story and tell it from the heart. And also you'll have noticed there, in all those speeches, they were learning and receiving the message from someone or something else. They were not the heroes of their own story. Lance Miller learned his message to validate from a receptionist. Prez Vasilev learned his from a tire that showed him that his pride was getting in his way. Mike Carr from a receptionist. Muhammad Kotani was more of he was exploring an idea. I learned my message from my dad. But let's look at a nice, easy formula for intentionally crafting a story. And now it's just the word story that you have to remember. So at the start of every story, you need to throw your audience into the setting. Where are you? When are you? So what are the circumstances, the setting that the story is taking place in? Make sure you paint it vividly so that they can instantly see it, they can hear it, taste it, smell it, touch it. The start of my winning speech, I was 40-year-old, miserable, in a spare room, eating ice cream. So there's the element of taste, watching Netflix. Again, an element of connection. People understand you're having a bad time if you're eating ice cream, watching TV. But it quickly let people know I was 40, I wasn't going anywhere fast, and I was stuck in my spare room. So throw them into the setting. And in the setting, that's where they meet the hero. Now, the audience is going to connect to you through your weaknesses, not through your successes. They want to know that you're normal, that you're ordinary, that you like them, and that you are similar to them. And this is also Craig Valentine. Be similar to your audience, not separate from them. So here, where we start to create that connection is when the hero encounters an obstacle. So an internal or external obstacle that is between them and where they want to be. Jocelyn Tyson this year, her obstacle was internal, and she had the external obstacle of a really dark water that she didn't want to get into. Now there's tension, now there's drama, now there's conflict. That's when a story comes to life. I saw in the chat earlier someone saying you need body language to win a speech contest. The body language comes naturally if you are reliving something that happened to you. And watch people talking about problems they've had or frustrations at a dinner party. Body language is there. They're not giving a speech. They're reliving. And then I up on the sign and it was delayed and I've got my bags and I don't know what to do. The body language comes with the conflict. So the obstacle is where most of your story happens. It's also where the biggest sense of connection and curiosity should be happening for your audience. So escalate the obstacle 2 or 3 times to really draw them in. And then we need the resolution. This is where you introduce your message statement, that it's going to show how you overcame the obstacle. As I said, have this delivered by someone or something other than you. Learn the lesson from someone or something else. That's how life works. There's not a person on this planet who has turned their life around alone. Acknowledge where the lesson came from, show how you've changed it, illustrate the change before you make your point. That one simple point where you're wanting the audience to commit to take your message home. So I hope this is a useful little framework to, again, check in on the speeches you're writing and go, is my story taking them on that journey? Am I remembering to acknowledge who taught me the lesson? And Craig Valentine talks about that being the guru. Let the guru deliver your message. And then when you finish, if my dad was here, he would say, much easier to get your point across. So that's the intentionally crafting the story part. And this is the hard work of all contests. This is where you should spend the bulk of your time. The F of gift is the thing that I believe helped me win the world championships. And that is to fill in the gaps for your audience. You want to think about the fact that this is an international audience. They might not understand your accent completely. They might not understand your references. How can you simplify what you're saying? And how can you use universal terms or give brief explanations if that's what they need to understand what you're saying? I got to fill in the gaps for my audience because we were on Zoom and I could practice all around the world and they could tell me, I wish you told us more about your mom's funeral, or, I'm feeling left out in your speech because I'm too old. What about people like me? And I'm going to show you some examples. I don't know, are you finding the videos useful? Maybe just actually check in with my audience here. Is it helping to bring it to life? Okay, great. So I'm going to show you, I've only obviously got my examples of how I filled in the gaps, but I'm going to show you like home recorded footage as I was practicing the speech, and then show you what the audience suggested I change, and then show you the semi-final or the final speech so you can see how the change happened. So let's have a look at it, because I truly believe this is where speeches are won and lost. And there were certain things, if I hadn't made those changes, not understanding there were a gap for my audience, the speech might not have been as easy for the judges to make a decision about. So let's have a look. This is a slightly longer.
Her life never made the headlines, but there were lines of people at her memorial, many with tattoos and nose rings. As an afterthought, we put out a little book for them to write memories of her in. And story after story told of the small ways that she'd left things better than she'd found them. Her beach would have told the same story. Never made the headlines, but there were long lines of people at her memorial, many with tattoos and nose rings. We put out this book for them to share memories of her, and story after story spoke of all the ways that she'd left them better. I loved how she always cleaned up, even if it wasn't her mess. Your mom was the cool gran I always wanted. Sheila driving me to AA meetings is the reason I'm still clean. Do you know what? Her beach would have written the same story. All the good in this world is because someone looked at their stretch of life and they chose to clean it up. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, leaders who became legends because they left everywhere they went a little, well, a lot better than they found it. All the good in this world is because someone looks at their stretch of life and they choose to leave it better. There are the obvious names, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Mandela, but I'm interested in the not so obvious names. Yours, mine, my mom's. My dad's letter catapulted me into what positive psychologists have been seeing for years. That something as simple as practicing daily gratitude can make it much easier to get through a hard time. This letter catapulted me into discovering that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what chapter of your life you're in. Something as simple as choosing to write a different story can make difficult circumstances a lot easier to deal with. The miracle that happened? I moved out of the spare room, much to my sister's relief. I met my husband, much to my relief. I had a baby at 44, much to my doctor's surprise. And the miracle that happened? Within 6 months, I'd moved into a new cottage, much to my sister's relief. Within a year, I'd kissed a prince, much to my relief. At 44, I had a baby boy, much to my doctor's disbelief. When life gets hard, look for the good, my darling, and watch for a miracle, because I'm watching too. Fresh out of miracles, Dad, and how? How do I look for the good in all of this? Verity, your life is a book. And if you're not enjoying the read, write a different story. And then watch for a miracle, because I'm watching too. Fresh out of miracles, Dad, and how? How do I write a different story about this?
Okay, so I think if you get nothing else out of that, it's that you should get a lot of feedback. If you are trying to take a contest speech to the next level, you have to make friends with feedback. You obviously have to learn to discern as to which feedback to listen to or not. I started looking for themes in the feedback, but when I'd heard from 3 different clubs in 3 different countries that they wanted to see the book from my mom's funeral and hear what people said about her, I was like, I'm going to have to rewrite my speech to include that. So it is so crucial that you fill in the gaps. I had other gaps that I don't have video footage of, but early versions of my speech, my final speech, I spoke about us leaving Zimbabwe, and my dad, lost everything. We had to start over living in a caravan. Now, I very quickly learned that in the US, you need to say camper van because someone told me that. I was like, great, that's a gap I didn't know about. And also realized I needed to leave out that we'd left Zimbabwe after a war, because there were going to be people going, Zimbabwe? Where's Zimbabwe? When was there a war in Zimbabwe? So I simplified the speech to, he lost his job, we lost our home, we started over in a camper van. So this is, excuse me, this is the writing and rewriting part of a speech that is so crucial. All right. So one more step to go. We are on the 4th step, the T, that I believe really helps champions stand out. And that is the ability to tie it all together in your conclusion. Great conclusions start tying back to what they've said already in the speech. There's these little moments that you refer back to, you maybe build on a little bit, but it's all taking you towards that last flourish, that bow where you go, and here's the gift for you. Here's the call to action. Here's the message for you to take home. I always see if I can tie back to my opening sentence. In fact, I managed to tie back to the title of my speech when I worked on my conclusion. But this is where the speech craft really starts to happen. Okay, so let's have a look at how world champions tie it all together and use that part of their speech craft to get the commitment they're looking for. Let's have a look at what.
This is the ultimate question. Do you validate? But this is not what's important. What's important is, can you, can you, can you, You've been a great audience.
Is there something collapsed in your life? Your knowledge may be limited. Your skills may be rusty, but no doubt you'll be changed when you reach out.
Words have power. Words are power. Words could be your power. You can change a life, inspire a nation, and make this world a beautiful place. Isn't that what we all wanted? Isn't that why we are all in this hall? Your mouth can spit venom, or it can mend a broken soul. Ladies and gentlemen, let that be our goal.
But the people in my life were able to reach into the trash can and make me whole again. If it was up to me, I would have never been able to do that. And this is why if you have great people in your life, no matter how broke, how lost, or how broken you become, they can piece you back together. Ladies and gentlemen, when I look at you, I see something in you. But I don't know what it is. Only you.
You want to lead people to fix persistent problems. Someday, somewhere, somebody is going to have to try something new, and you as the leader have the opportunity to encourage that effort that might fail, for a chance to find the future. The victory is in the try. Be a Montgomery leader. Encourage risk. Try new things. The victory is not in the result, my friends. The victory is in the try. Contest chair.
Your life is a book. Then every day you get to decide, is your story being written for you or by you? When my dad reminded me that I was the author of my life changed. So if you're looking for a change, you want a new chapter, or you just fancy a miracle, pick up your pen and write a different story.
So there you have it. The 4 steps to what I believe will help you write a winning speech. It's getting clear on your message, intentionally crafting your story to wrap that message so that it's a delight for the audience to receive, filling in any gaps that will just make it easier for them to receive what you're giving them. And then when you get to a conclusion, link back to all the golden moments, those little things that have stood out in your speech, and repeat them, maybe in a slightly different way, but to make it clear, I'm getting to the end. And my final flourish, my call to action, is how I finish. And the audience feels like they have received something valuable, something that they have been connected to through curiosity, that they've been connected through by being able to see themselves in what you've been saying, and that they finish feeling committed to take home what you've given them. So yes, you need to enter a speech contest to win, but you also need to approach your speech from a heart space, but also from the head space of following what has worked in the past and bringing your unique flavor, your unique twist and taste to how you deliver that speech. So all that is left to do is for you to pick up your pen and write your winning story. I hope that as we go into Q&A, we are going to be able to fill in any gaps that there might still be for you. And I really, it's been such a pleasure and a privilege to share this time with you. And if you want to keep in touch with me, please do. I see there's been things popping in the chat. I'd love to keep in touch, and I will also send through a little PDF that covers everything that I've spoken about today, so you can use it as a checklist as you work on your speeches. My book is on a Black Friday special, still just for another 2 days. So it's 50% off on my website. It's an ebook. It's 60 pages. If you want to print it out, you can get it printed. It's 30 pages back to back, but there's tips, there's templates, step by step to write winning speeches. So over to you. Questions. How can I serve? You can see the night is dawning as I see my office getting darker around me. It's it's 7:30 at night here now.
Okay,
What
may I
question?
quickly just jump in here, Verity, if you don't mind? Just a teeny tiny little thing. Toastmasters, I need to ask you all for a huge favor right now. Please work with me. Can please everybody just quickly unmute themselves?
Hi, Ben.
Okay.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
okay.
And now everybody,
You send me the
please
Zoom?
clap your hands and say
No,
thank you
I'm
so
watching a
much,
workshop.
Verity.
Okay, I'm
Thank
coming
you,
now. I'm gonna shut
Verity.
this
That was
off. Okay.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Verity.
Beautiful. That was brilliant.
That was
Oh.
such a wonderful workshop. We all learned so much. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Verity, for sharing all your knowledge with us. We will also make sure you can just email me whatever you have to share, and we will make sure we'll send it out to all the participants. And I also posted the link for the book, for your Instagram page, and also for your page, because I love receiving those newsletters from you. In the chat, I will repost them. Please sign up. I can promise you it's absolutely amazing. And with that, I also would like to help you, Verity, with the Q&A session. So everybody, if you move your cursor, your mouse at the bottom, you have reactions. And if you raise your hand, I will see everybody popping up here, then we can call one by one. Should you have any issues with that, just keep waving your hand, and one of the members in Contest Mastery will get your attention and put in the chat room, and I will make sure you will be able to get your question. And of course, if maybe you don't feel comfortable in speaking up, or maybe you have a cough or something, just put your question in the chat room. I will make sure your question will be heard. Thank you very much. So who is the first person who wants to raise their hand? It's a once in a lifetime chance. You can ask Verity directly questions.
And I've put my free PDF. It's in the chat, so you should be able to download it. Madeline, I see Madeline's got her hand up.
Thank you, Verity. Thank you, Contest Mastery Toastmasters. Wow. First, I'm going to start with that. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be here today and partake. Verity, my question to you is, your speeches that you shared with us today, you were virtual for many of them. And as you said, you had the opportunity to attend meetings worldwide, receive feedback, evaluations, and present from the comfort of your home. Do you feel like that benefited you because now we're back in person, or that's a great way to practice? It's a great way to really get that honest and constructive feedback to make the speech more powerful. And so when you have the opportunity to then compete in person, do you see that will add value, or did you notice a big difference?
So it's a great question, Madeline. I mean, I never was given the option to compete in person because we were all still in lockdown. So I think I will be the only ever fully virtual world champion, because the year before the club contest started in person and then we went into lockdown. So for me, I think the universe conspired in my favor. I think it was Kennedy who said, life is unfair, but sometimes it's unfair in your favor. And lockdown was very unfair in my favor. I would not have been a member of Toastmasters. I had an 18-month-old baby. I would not have been competing. That said, I do believe that even if you're competing in person, use the global reach of online meetings to get international feedback on your speech. I would not be world champion if I hadn't had that. I can promise you. I'm in Cape Town. We're a very small Toastmasters community. Even if I'd been district champion, I would have been practicing my speech for Cape Townians, not even South Africans, just Cape Townians. We're a very specific group of people. I would have only had a Cape Townian perspective on my speeches. But I got to go to India, Bahrain, Canada, Australia, London, New York, and I got international feedback. So even if you're going to be in person, do the online to hear what's working. I mean, I saw someone giving me feedback, and I know it's a problem in my video. The little topics come up and they're too short, and I need to change that. But thank you for reminding me that I need to fill in that gap for my audience. You only get that by doing the practice, and then go do it on, obviously do in-person clubs, but do online clubs to get a different perspective from where you are situated. Great
Wonderful.
question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Grace.
Good day, Colin here from Wisconsin. And we are one of those states that is a bit schizophrenic over how COVID was handled, and I'll just be kind about that. And so some people were fully locked down, some people were fully virtual, and then some of us tried to be Switzerland and do both and become hybrid. And now the debate is, well, you know, you really should just do either all Zoom or, you know, Teams or whatever, virtual, or do all in person. And I think that that's the wrong way for Toastmasters, in particular the club that I'm a member of, to go. Do you have any ideas on the idea that maybe hybrid, because you are discussing, in essence, a hybrid universe where you had your Cape Townians in person, but you also had the universe?
100%. So my club, Toasted, is a fully hybrid club. We have members from all around the world. We've got members in the US, in India, in Europe, mainly Cape Townians. So once a month, we have an in-person meeting where our other members join online. And then once a month, we have a fully virtual meeting. And that's worked really well for us. It saves us money on venue hire, but we definitely prioritize coming together in person. We gather a lot more visitors that way. We're sitting at 35 members currently since we did that, but they love the hybrid sense. They can see we're fully international. So I would say we're in a hybrid world. I've had to embrace it as a facilitator. I always have people joining my in-person sessions for corporates on the screen. So definitely hybrid is here to stay, and we need to use it to our advantage because the world of work is largely online, and people need to know how to present in a compelling way in the online space. So I would say embrace hybrid.
I have one other part to that question. Do you think that helps people that would rather die than speak in public? So if we tell them that they're on a camera, that's actually more. Okay, so the camera people are the ones that would rather die than public speaking. We might be able to suck them in that way to help them to write a different story, to use your catchphrase.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Thank you. I'm just seeing a quick question in the chat from Dwayne saying that the World Championship requires multiple contest speeches. Yes, you need the speech you competed club with that ideally takes you to the World semifinals. And then if you win the World semifinals, you need a brand new speech that you've never competed, I think, past district level with before. So that is very important. And I feel very sorry for the semifinal speech, to be honest, because that's the speech that does all the work. That's the speech that gets you into the world finals. And then if you win, everyone talks about the speech you won with. So I always feel like my poor semifinal speech is like the first wife of a billionaire who was there while he was making all the money. And now that he's got the money, he's got a wife that's 20 years younger and everyone looks at her. So that's what I think about the semifinal speech. But the strategy, do you save your most compelling speech for later, or do you consider each speech to be equal quality? For me, that was never an option. I was so committed to my mom's speech being heard at the World semifinals that was I never thought that it was an option. And now as I coach people, and I've been lucky enough to have people place the last 2 years in the finals, that is a consideration for some speakers. For me, I feel the speech that's been doing the hard work should get you into the finals, and then you have to have written a better speech for the finals. So that's the challenge. I don't know if it's a strategy or just you have to write the best speech you've ever written. The challenge of that is you've never tested it on judges before. But if you've practiced, and The average amount of practice that world champions do is about 40 clubs. I surveyed a whole lot of us after I won, finalists and world champions, and the average practice is about 40 clubs. I was completely average. And if you've practiced at 40 clubs and received feedback at 40 clubs, you'll know if you've got a winning speech or not. I hope that answers that question. I'm just seeing if anyone else is keeping track of the questions, please let me know. So how do you prepare for both? Thank you.
Stepping in, if there's any question, if I see anything in the chat room, I will raise my hand. I will voice the question. So you just focus on answering the questions.
Okay.
I've also called on the people to raise their question, so you can just fully relax and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Those questions.
So I see George has a hand up. So if you maybe can help me with the chat, I'm not going to read the chat. You can. So George.
Yes, hi Verity. I loved your presentation. So many wonderful golden nuggets in there. But I wanted to focus on the gift and the T in gift, tying it together, because you said you need a call to action. And yours is very clear. Write your own story. But Jenandaya Hediarachi, who I love from 2014, it was really, I see something in you. And it was an implied action, not a specific call to action. I'm just wondering your thoughts. Is it really necessary to have a call to action to win a world championship, or can the message be implied?
So that's a great question. And you'll actually notice I didn't include him on how world champions get clear on their message, because I see something in you and I don't know what it is a very sticky statement, but it actually wasn't his message. His message, and when he reached into the trash can and pulled out the rose, his message was that the people in your life, if you're broken, lost, or broke, they can put you back together again. That's actually what he was getting across. But he used a very sticky statement to build humor to make that message clear. And so he's one of the unusual cases. Aaron Beverly, An Unbelievable Story, is also a fantastic example of storytelling to the last 60 seconds before he says acceptance despite difference should not be an unbelievable story. And suddenly his entire speech takes on a whole new take. And he did have a strong call to action. So to be fair, I think any good communication should have a point. And Dhananjaya did have a point around seeing the best in people. So it was implied, but it definitely came across. So it depends on the story you're telling. But you will see if you watch world champion speeches, they often at the end, it starts tying back to giving something to the audience, a sense of this worked for me. I hope you try it. So I don't know if that answers your question, George.
Yeah, no, I love your insight. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Sam.
Hi, Verity. Thank you for your time today and those who helped gather this together. My question is, do you or can you please share of any Indigenous speakers or Toastmasters that we could look to for guidance and tips and, people we should be aware of? Thank you.
When you say Indigenous, what do you mean?
Someone who is native to their land, wherever that land may be.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So not often I can't answer a question, but I'm not sure. So you're just wanting to know about exceptional Toastmasters in different countries?
Those specifically who are Indigenous and identify as Indigenous speakers.
So I must say I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because I'm not sure. It's not something that's becoming immediately obvious to me. Other than maybe looking at district winners from foreign districts and reaching out to them. That's the only thing that I can think of for that. I'm sorry, Sam.
Thank you, Verity. I'll invite anyone in the chat. If you know someone to follow that we should follow that identifies as Indigenous, please let us know, because clearly we need that voice and we have not had that yet. So thank you, Verity.
So because Indigenous, obviously I live in Africa, so that means African to me. So I think it means different things in different parts of the world. And that's why I was so excited that Cyril Jr. Dim won with a Shona title. I'm from Zimbabwe, where he's from as well. And Indini means this is me. So that's probably our strongest example of an Indigenous speaker cleaning up at the world stage. And I did see someone asking in the chat, how did I identify what clubs I wanted to speak at? There is, if you follow me on YouTube at Verity Price Speaks, there is a whole clip on how I strategically went through Toastmasters.org, find a club function. Once I'd identified who were not winning districts for the semifinals, and those were the districts I approached. I didn't want to encroach on other semifinalists' districts. And then I looked at my time zone, morning, evening, and I found clubs and I reached out and I asked them for their support. So I hope that answers that question. Mariel.
Hi, Verity. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Mariel. I'm driving. Sorry for that. So I got to the semifinals 2 years ago, and thank you so much because you were crucial to my winning, well, to that success. At that time, I was watching your YouTube videos and your all the things that you were mentioning on your video. So I have two questions for you, besides just saying thank you for everything you have done so far. So the first question is, how do you think that I'm right now on time to prepare 2 speeches? Because last time I was not very prepared for that. And once I got to the semifinals, I thought that I was very prepared, but I wasn't. I didn't have enough confidence to present myself in front of an audience. Actually, it was my first time. So the first question is, do you think it's right now I'm on time to start practicing my 2 speeches? And the second question is, how do you think we can craft a speech telling several stories for the same point? Because I often try to say the same, like part 1, it's one story, then part 2, it's the second story, part 3, it's the third story for the same point. And I think that it's very like rough to start changing from one story to another story for the same point. So I don't know if you have any suggestions to make a smooth like transition.
So I would suggest watching Muhammad Kotani's Power of Words. That's a masterclass in 3 short stories that he moves seamlessly between to make one point. And that's a very good example from a world champion. And I always say it depends on the speech, but sometimes it's easier just to tell one story and tell it well and make one point. So it depends on what it is that you're speaking about. But in terms of preparation, my way I approached it was I worked on one speech and I gave it everything until I won district. Even though I'd had a premonition I was going to win. I didn't know where that came from, but I was like, I need to see if I win district. The day I won district, the next morning I woke up and I started looking for a second speech. Now, I know that a lot of semifinalists don't do that because I was coaching semifinalists in your year as well. And I said to them, wow, you've won district. Okay, find your speech. And I got the call the day after they heard they were semifinalists going, I know you told me, and I didn't want to, jinx it. So I didn't write a speech. I think unless you're sitting with 2 speeches, that's amazing. But give one speech everything, grow it, change it, develop it. If you become a district winner, you want to use that 6-week waiting period to look for the speech of your lifetime. That's what worked for me. It's going to be different for different people. But I did have a client this year in Bahamas with the stress of being in the world finals and going, I needed longer on the speech, and they still did exceptionally. But that was tough, and it is a tough one for everyone. So you've got to keep going through the journey. I hope that helps, and congrats on being on the semifinals. We'll see you back there. Sue, you maybe can tell me if there's things in the chat I should be looking at.
Yes, so I do have here a really good question from Michaela Gallen. Do you believe that the topic message that will get you to the finals should be different than the topic that will get you to district level, different judges, culture, sensitivities?
So here's the thing, and that's a great question. What I see happening is people all around the world, they tend to write a speech that's going to win their district. And they forget that the district speech goes into the world quarterfinals video regional round. And if that message at district isn't fully universal and everyone in your country loved it, suddenly you go, why am I not getting into the semifinals? So you have to treat this, if you're wanting to get to the semifinals or the finals, you have to treat your speech like I'm writing it for the world stage. And yes, you can have maybe a few things that might work for humor in your culture or your country. But again, universal connection is what's going to get you into the world semifinals. They are not going to get regional humor or local humor. So you have to fill in the gaps at district level. That's my take on that question.
That's a
Awesome. Thank you so much. Then I have another question here in the chat room
know each other.
from Jeff Spitzer. Question: you mentioned hiring Lance Miller as your speech coach. Did you start with coaching before even the club level or after you achieved a certain level in the contest?
So I reached out to Lance a week before my district final, and we had a connection. I'd met him when I was a division director. I'd hosted him in Cape Town. He'd actually helped me with a masterclass for my club. That's why I do say yes when clubs ask nicely, because he'd done that for me. But I honestly reached out to Lance. I had the sense I was going to win. And when I sent him my speech and transcript, if I'm honest, when we got on for the call, and he very kindly did that first call as a gift for me, I thought he was just going to tell me, whoa, Verity, this is amazing. You're going to the world finals. And he didn't. He was like, what do you think about your speech? And you don't ever want someone to say that to you. And I had to listen to him tell me all the things that could be improved. And I struggled for the first half an hour of that meeting. I didn't write one note. My ego was going, what does he know? He won in 2005. Things have changed. Your speech is great. And luckily, I say my soul, because I think sometimes life's a tug of war between ego and soul. But my soul said, Verity, are you nuts? This man has won the world championship of public speaking. Pick up your pen. Like the message was coming then. Write down notes. And I had to rewrite and change a lot of that speech. And I honestly believe that coaching session was the reason. I think I could easily have actually won district with what I had. It was a strong speech. But because of Lance's coaching, my winning speech got to the world semifinals. So it's different for different people. I have people already starting coaching journeys with me 2 months before their speech contest because they're really taking it seriously. And sometimes I have people going, I've lost a division 4 years in a row. Please help me. And I was lucky I've taken one of those people to semifinals. But it depends on you. It depends on your process. But I highly recommend having someone other than the people very close to you look at your speech. Obviously, I love getting coaching clients, but that's not the point for me. You have to find the right coach for you, and you have to go into that conversation going, am I ready to be coached? Am I coachable? Because it's only if you're coachable that the coaching is going to help.
Wonderful. Next question here is regarding the foundational phrase. You said that this should be mentioned several times. If the hero of the story says it to you towards the end of your story, how can you compensate for that to ensure that the audience still gets it effectively?
Great question. And I will go back to Aaron Beverly's unbelievable story as an example of that can work. If the story that you're telling is so compelling and the audience is so connected to every moment and beat and little bit of tension and conflict that's happening, and right at the end there's a aha moment, then you can get away with it. But watch his speech, and even though his message only comes, it's almost in like less than a minute, he says acceptance despite difference should not be an unbelievable story. And then he manages to say it, I think, 2 more times. The fact that I can repeat it to you means it's stuck. So it's how you deliver it, and can it be said 1 or 2 times so that it at least goes in. So it depends on the story you're telling. Sometimes you have to have the whole story to get, and the moral of that story was XYZ. But if you are telling a story that illustrates how you went from one state to another. And that's what great stories often do, is like the person is stuck and they're stuck and they're stuck, and then someone offers them a way forward, a resolution, and they take it, and then they change. And then there's a message for the audience. Then often your message statement's going to come probably in the middle of your story. And that's life for most of us. If you look at things you were struggling with, at some point, someone said something, or you read something, or you learned something, and then you were like, oh, and then you started changing. And that's a formula from Lance Miller that is well worth also applying to your speeches. It's what he told me to do 10 days before district. Tell a story that makes a point, and then show how you applied it in your life. Don't tell the audience to apply it in them until you have illustrated that you did it. You tried it, you changed. And only after you've shown your change, that's when you say, do you want to try this? So again, there are no fast rules about this. Exceptional speakers can break the rules and still win a contest because they added value to the audience. I'm just showing you that there seems to be some themes and threads that run through winning speeches, and it's worth bearing it in mind if you are treating this like the sport that it is.
Absolutely loved your answer. Thank you so much, Verity. I have another one here for you. After being on top of the world as a world champion of public speaking, what's next?
I get that question a lot. What's next is work-life balance. If I could be the world champion of work-life balance, I don't think there's a trophy big enough for that. Honestly, for me, the gift of winning this contest that I didn't understand, and I don't think anyone who's competing, you're so busy trying to win, you don't think about what happens after you win. It's a little bit like you're so busy planning your wedding, you don't think about, oh, what's marriage like? So for me, the gift that came out of winning this contest was the giving back that I get to do into the Toastmasters community, the coaching, which I never even considered would be part of what I would end up doing. So helping other speakers go as far as they can go in this contest. I mainly work with professionals with corporate speaking, but helping contestants is incredibly inspiring for me. But next for me, I've got another book bubbling somewhere in the back of my head. When I find time, I'd love to create an e-program so that people could learn with me without me having to be working in the middle of the night. But those are all nice things that I'm going to get to as and when time allows. I have a 4-year-old. So work-life balance right now is the prize that I am chasing. And I'll let you know when I get it right.
We like to hear that. Thank you so much, Verity. One more question here before I hand it back to the audience. How many hours, and this question is from Mario Spirovsky, how many hours did you put into writing and refining your semi and final speeches?
Great question. And again, I did a survey and I discovered I was bog standard. So I'll just take you through a few numbers. About 70% of finalists and world champions start working on their speech 3 months before the contest. And they practice at an average of 40 clubs. So I was bog standard. They write an average of 30 to 35 versions of their speeches. I was bog standard. It was 30 of the one and 32 of the other. Their average word count is 110 words per minute, the lowest being 70 words per minute, Prez Vasilev, and I think the highest was about 140, and that might have been Danajaya, I'm not sure. But an average of 100 to 110 words per minute. And in the last 3 months, about 70% of us spent an average of 1 to 4 hours a day writing, rewriting, rehearsing, practicing for clubs. I fell into the 4-hour category, and my husband accused me of thinking I was going to the Olympics. And I said to him, well, it feels like the Olympics. It's an all-consuming process if you're taking it really seriously, and I will never regret the effort I put in. But of course, as I say, even after all that effort, only one person is guaranteed to win. But the growth, you can go buy a trophy, that growth and everything I can teach you now is because of the time that I put into those 2 speeches for 7 months.
Wonderful, thank you. And I see now Mary Torda has her hand up, and then Annie Varghese, she had her hand up too, but she lowered it. So I would like to give it to the audience. Mary, what's your question?
Thank you, Verity. You have been a blessing. You mentioned about the fear of death to speak. You mentioned about the ability to storytell. Do you realize how you've helped the average Toastmaster across the world have conversational skills like I've never heard before? You've answered these questions, and most of us are going to deal with conversation. Can you just mention 1 or 2 things that has helped you with your conversational skills across the world?
What a great question, Mary, and thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I truly believe that good conversational skills start with good listening skills. If you really listen to someone, if you hear what they're saying and you have genuine interest and curiosity in them, That means you can ask questions. You can get them to fill in the gaps by asking questions, gaining clarity, gaining understanding. And when people feel heard, when they feel listened to, when they feel attentively paid attention to, that's when a conversation starts. So I would say around the world, I try to hear what people are saying. I build on it by asking questions to gain more context. And through that, we build connection. So it's almost the same steps that I'm speaking about here, is going, and where can I find that relatedness where we have a common point, and then we can talk about that. And through that building of rapport, the conversation naturally flows.
At an international convention, I met somebody who told me he formed the government for that island. And he said, if you don't get 7 hugs a day, you won't make it in life. And if you have to count them, you're out of trouble. You've received more than 7 hugs today.
Oh, thank you. I think there's a thing, you need 1 hug a day for this, 10, and it's like, yeah, 7 or 8 hugs for, like, you know, good mental health. So 100%. I love that, Mary. Thank you. I will take it. Catherine. And then I know we're getting to the end of our time, I'm aware.
Thank you so much, Verity. I'm wondering, how do you practice your speech without losing your genuineness or your enthusiasm about your speech?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. It's one of my favorites. So, of course, if you are repeating a speech time after time, I was sometimes doing 4 clubs a day, it starts to get stale. It starts to sound strange. It's like saying a word a few times and then it starts to sound odd. My trick for that is I practice in different ways and in different spaces. So I would go for a walk and I would just talk through my speech, just hitting the beats. I would do it in the car while I was driving. Often when I was in the car, I'd actually sing it out, like making it up as a song, just to get the words internalized. Or I would rehearse it like I was telling it to a tiny child, but I was going through it to say. Or like I was so bored and I just had to say the words and get them out. So I did it in some pretty crazy ways, and different personalities. I'd pretend I was a famous character and I'd try to do it in their personality. That helped to keep it fresh. It also helped me to uncover humor, different places for pauses. So do not practice your speech the way you're going to deliver it every time. Practice it in different ways, different energy levels, so that it is internalizing in you, but you've got an element of play. And before each one, my camera was off and they were calling my name and I was jumping in the room. I was giving thanks. I was getting my energy up and then I'd start. So I hope that helps. I'm aware we are at our time.
So Verity, I have still one question to ask you from the chat room. I want to make sure that Annie had the chance to raise her question. So this is the final question for today. Do we have to give a new speech in each level of the contest?
No, you don't have to. You can. I would never do that if I were you. You're never going to write the best speech of your life if you give a new one every time. Normally, people take 1 speech from club to semifinals if they're lucky enough to get there, and then you need a brand new speech for the finals. But that's why I'm saying that club to semifinal speech should be the speech that you are proudest of, but then you need to write a better one for the finals. No pressure.
Thank you so much, Verity. That was a wonderful workshop. And all the questions you've answered, these were so valuable answers and inspiration that you provided us with. I'm sure everybody in here can concur. It's a Saturday. You took time out of your busy schedule. And I know you're a mom and you're very busy. So we truly, from the bottom of our heart, appreciate you coming today and sharing your wonderful knowledge with us, the world of Toastmasters. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Please keep in touch. Join me online. Sign up for my newsletter. I like to just keep sharing as I learn and as I grow. And I'd love to keep in touch with all of you. And thank you for having me. And be blessed and be warm, that side of the world.